Has a murder at this historical courthouse led to a resident ghost?
What former workers spend their afterlife in this courthouse?
Who or what haunts the elevators?
Find out the answers to these questions and more as we uncover the peculiar hauntings and history from the Pioneers Museum in Colorado Springs.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm Erica.
And this is The Haunted Atlas, a haunted U.S. podcast.
In the interest of fully exploring history of certain locations, the Haunted Atlas may discuss sensitive or disturbing topics. Listener discretion is advised.
A beautiful building of Renaissance Revival architectural design sits in El Paso County. This courthouse-turned-museum offers a breadth of historical information, but locals say it may also offer historical ghosts. This building actually began as a courthouse. The history dates back to 1901, when construction began on this building. The parcel of land had been sold to El Paso County for $10.
Oh my gosh, that's so cheap.
Yes, and I thought, okay, 1901, $10 is going to be a lot of money. But then I converted it with an inflation calculator, and it's only about $320 in today's money.
Well, that's a steal. For a whole courthouse?
Well, the parcel of land.
Oh, right. But even just to build the courthouse, like acquiring the land to build this monumental building in their town.
Right.
$300.
Yes, exactly. If only we could find property for $300.
So sad.
The building itself did not take long to build, and it was completed in 1903.
Wow, that is not a long time at all.
No, for that time period, for a whole courthouse. I guess when you have city funding and city resources dedicated to the building, then it makes sense that it would move quickly.
Right. I wonder if this was kind of an initiation for the town. So once the courthouse was built, they could really establish themselves. So it was super important.
And I feel like it's always a step up towards being more of a formal area. You know?
Yes. And it's like the post office.
Yes, it is. And the 1900s is still pretty early.
Yeah.
Especially for as far over as Colorado. Perhaps the most notable part of this building is its looming clock tower. The clock tower was considered extremely tall for the time that it was built because most buildings weren't, skyscrapers like they would be now.
Yeah.
So that was a significant architectural feat for the time.
I think clock towers are just so beautiful.
Me too. And imagine back then, it would have been really awe-worthy to see that. And honestly, maybe kind of menacing to go to the courthouse and you have this huge looming clock tower.
That's also fair.
From the time it was completed in 1903 to 1973, the building served as the courthouse for El Paso County. There were many cases tried here, but there's one prominent case, and that was a murderer. It was in 1959, and he had actually killed someone on courthouse property.
Oh, wow. That is a risky move.
Right? That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
It's kind of like going to the police station to commit a murder.
Yeah.
The building, of course, processed other cases, but by the mid-60s, there was talk of tearing down the courthouse.
Really?
Yeah, which is always sad because it's a historical structure. And by 1973, the county actually did begin moving workers out of the building.
Oh.
Yeah, so they were all set for the demolition. But because it was a historical structure, locals decided to band together and try to save this courthouse. They won, and the courthouse was preserved. In 1979, the Pioneers Museum of Colorado Springs opened.
Which is so cool. I always love hearing stories about towns saving the prominent buildings in their history. Because I think we are so quick. I don't remember who I was speaking to about this, but we're so quick in America compared to Europe to tear down historical buildings. You have buildings from the 1100s in Europe. And I think because ours are just from the 1900s and then we were moving forward with technology. But think about how cool it will be 100 years from now, all of the buildings that we've kept open for more than 200 years,
I agree. It's being blinded by the fact that the building is old and not considering it historical,
yeah.
I think is what happens. People think, we just need to modernize. But it's a beautiful building built in Renaissance Revival architecture with this huge clock tower.
Yeah.
Why would you not want to save that?
Yes.
And I do feel like it makes sense to exhaust every opportunity for the structure before just jumping to tearing it down.
Right.
Like, why not put a museum in a historical building?
Right, especially if it was kind of the first building of the town. That makes sense, to put the town's history there.
Right. And saw so much happening of the town. Every court case tried there.
Right.
Today, it has a rotating series of exhibits, and visitors can see both the exhibits and, of course, historically, the architecture.
That's cool that they do a rotating list of exhibits, because then if you visit the town, there's always reason to kind of go back.
Yeah, and some of them are standard because it does talk about the pioneers, etc., hence the name. But they do have rotating features as well.
Right.
Which I think is also cool for the locals, because that would bring me in if I lived in the area, rather than go once, read all the history, see the beautiful structure. Now it's like, oh, well, maybe they're featuring, I don't know, something else about Colorado history.
Yeah.
However, this gorgeous museum may offer more than just historical education. It is also known to be haunted.
Hey guys, I'm Tommy from Tommy Cullum's Let's Get Freaky podcast, where we talk to real people and have real conversations about paranormal experiences, including ghosts, cryptids, UFOs, and all high strangeness, and even a little bit of conspiracy too. So if you enjoy these freaky conversations, check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And we're also available to watch on YouTube. Tommy Cullum's Let's Get Freaky.
With a history of murder, it's no surprise that this location might have some lingering spirits.
Yeah, especially on the property.
Right.
Not even just the case, the actual murder.
Right. When you consider all of the cases that were tried there and the high emotionality of the courtroom, it definitely makes sense to me that it's going to be haunted.
Yes, because people, when you're going through the court systems, it has to be traumatic. We talk sometimes about people being drawn to these traumatic events, even if they're negative. And so I think even just a case being there could elicit spirits.
Yeah, that's a good point. And not necessarily even the spirits of the people directly involved in the case. It could also be the family members.
True, yeah.
The judges, workers, etc.
Yes.
And this murder is actually a very interesting story. In 1959, Eddie Beals, who was a custodian at the building, was shot by one of his employees.
Oh my gosh, that's so severe.
Yes, it is a very severe reaction, in my opinion. The person who shot him was named Willie Butler, and the two had had a disagreement over wages. Which begs the question in my mind, how much control did Eddie have over the wages? Because if you're working at a county courthouse, I would assume that your manager doesn't have that much control.
Right. I think even if you're not a law official, if you're working for the government, I think federal rates are what set your salary.
That's a good point.
I don't know that it comes specifically from the managers. I think that really only happens in private practices,
Right. And it could have been that it was not the wage rate, but rather hours worked.
True.
So total overall wages. But it still is a significant action to take over this disagreement.
Yes.
And shortly after his death, Eddie began appearing as a ghost. So it was pretty immediate.
Oh my gosh. I mean, so he must have had memories there.
Yeah. And I think it's, again, important to consider the process of, quote, becoming a ghost. Because people think, oh, it has to have been something that happened a long time ago. It's ghosts from the 1800s. But it really could happen as quickly as, okay, this person died. Their spirit has not necessarily moved on. And they're lingering.
Yes, and I'm sure that you're going to go into this, so maybe this statement of mine will be proven wrong. However, it's also possible that his spirit didn't realize that he had passed. If your spirit kind of awakens in the place that you've always worked in, you might just assume that you're at work.
I actually did not even consider that he might not know. I thought he was just there.
Yeah.
Because it was such a significant place to him. But it's definitely possible that he was unaware. And I just think it's cool that this has been happening for over 60 years. And so there's so much account of Eddie.
Yes.
The first reports actually came from the night crew of the building. The security guards have said that since the sightings, they actually avoid areas of the building where Eddie used to frequent, because he did have an apartment there and he had, of course, his workspaces. And they report eerie feelings in his workspaces and the area that used to be his apartment. Like, they're just overall not welcome there,
Right.
which could lend itself to your theory. If he doesn't realize that he's passed, then maybe he's wondering why all these people are in his apartment.
Yes.
Or why his apartment doesn't look the same anymore.
Right.
I think it would be very startling if you were a night shift security guard that potentially knew Eddie to be on your rotation checking the building, and then all of a sudden you see Eddie.
Yes.
That must be very startling.
Well, right, because in that time too, I don't know how prevalent it was for individuals to be talking about the paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering if people thought that they were kind of going a little bit crazy.
That's not a bad point, like overtaken with grief type thing.
Yes.
That definitely could be the case. That is not all with Eddie, though, because he's said to also haunt the elevators.
Huh.
The elevators in the building are the old birdcage style, where the doors need to be manually opened and shut.
Oh, I've always wanted to ride in one of those.
Yeah, they're so cool, but they do make me nervous that they're going to break.
That's fair.
The elevator will often travel to empty floors as if someone has pushed the button to call the elevator there. And I am always skeptical because this is a very old building. So it could be that the signal system, the electricity, etc., is faulty.
That's a very big possibility. If the elevators were kind of renovated and it was still doing the same thing, I think that would almost give it more credence.
Mm-hmm.
And I can imagine if you're riding the elevator, though, if it does kind of end up on an empty floor that you didn't click, that's probably terrifying. Like, even if that isn't paranormal, you're going to think something's weird.
But would you think, oh, okay, someone that was in the building hit it and then decided not to wait for the elevator and take the stairs?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good point. I would absolutely think that.
Yeah. So I'm wondering where the designation between either electrical issues, visitors, and the paranormal happens. Because obviously, if this is happening consistently, perhaps to the same floor after hours when it can't be someone hitting it, then okay, that leans more towards paranormal. I can't imagine if this is an ongoing issue for 60 years that they just haven't fixed it. So
Right.
that gives more credit to it being paranormal. But I am always skeptical. Additionally, workers report finding the elevator door left open. And again, the birdcage elevators, you have to slide it shut in order for the elevator to run.
Oh.
Because it's a safety feature. It won't run with the door open because otherwise you're just exposed.
Huh.
In these elevators, 3 sides are solid.
Okay.
And then there's like a gate that folds out to walk out.
Was there no door with the birdcage?
No, it's
elevators?
just that is the door.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I take it back. I don't want to ride one of those.
I know. It's
That's
like I thought you
terrifying.
wanted to ride one.
I thought it was like one of the, I don't know now what I'm thinking of, but it's like one that has 2 doors, like gold. There's like gated doors and then the door shut. I don't know.
You just want to ride a pretty elevator.
Honestly, yeah, I do love pretty elevators.
I mean, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. But no, this is more of like a bare bones type style. That's why I said I always get nervous on them.
Well, yeah, now that I can like see what this looks like, that's
Yes.
terrifying.
Yes.
I don't want to see the inside of the elevator as I'm riding down it.
Well, I mean, it's only in old buildings. But because that safety feature is there,
Right.
that it needs to be closed, it's not the case that any worker would leave that door open.
Yes.
Because it would render the elevator useless.
Right.
But apparently Eddie was known to be a trickster in his life.
Oh,
So people think that he might be messing with them.
which I like.
I am torn between it's cute and it must be so annoying.
Well, that's fair.
Because when the elevator is working, he's sending it to floors that it doesn't need to go to.
Right.
And then he's leaving it on those floors with the door open so that it can't run. So then you have to then walk through the building to find where the elevator is located.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about people walking through.
Yeah, because you have to go manually shut the door.
Yeah. Well, that's a fair point.
Yeah.
Eddie's like, if I can't ride the elevator, neither can you.
Yeah. He's like, if I don't get to go home tonight, you don't get to go home tonight. In addition, staff have attributed many strange happenings to Eddie. It seems like anything that happens, they just write it off. Objects are often moved around in the gift shop or in the museum in general, and they assume that it's just Eddie moving them. And I think if we consider it 2 ways, one, like you said, maybe he doesn't realize that he's a ghost. Could be thinking, hey, this is not where this item goes.
Right.
Or if he does realize he's a ghost and is a trickster and bored, he's like, I'm going to rearrange the gift shop tonight.
Yeah. Which I kind of like that theory. I kind of like that he's intelligently knocking the elevators to each floor and messing around with the gift shop.
Yeah.
You know?
What else are you going to do?
Yeah. Do you think that when he first woke up, because it happened so suddenly, that he didn't know that he passed? And then as time started going on, he like realized it?
That's interesting. I don't know. I think it's definitely possible that he didn't realize he had passed.
Yeah.
Because if you are shot and wake up in the same spot, then I think it's possible to think, oh my gosh, I just survived that gunshot.
Yeah.
But I think given other people's interactions with him, it would quickly tip him off that he had died.
Yes.
But I think it is possible. There have also been shadow figures seen throughout the building. And once again, staff attribute it to Eddie.
Right.
I get it. Eddie is a big part of the history. He was murdered on site. Definitely believe that his spirit's there. I don't know if everything is Eddie.
I agree with that. Like we said in the beginning, I think cases being tried there can be a really traumatic event for people. So I think it's definitely possible that other spirits are there.
Right. And who knows about the grounds before it was a courthouse, too. This only started in 1900s.
Right.
So there could be deaths that happened prior to the building. I just think it's strange that he would be messing with the elevators and he is keeping people away from his spaces and he's moving objects in the gift shop and he's appearing as a shadow figure.
I mean, Eddie's busy, apparently.
I mean, I guess you have to do something. And it's definitely possible that it is all him. But I think without doing any deep investigation to identify the name of the spirit doing these exact things, I'm hesitant to think that the gift shop thing and all of the shadow figures are Eddie. I think it definitely makes more sense that he would be in the areas that he occupied, like the elevator in his apartment.
Yes.
It's not just Eddie, though, because in addition to the staff reporting strange happenings in the elevators, visitors have reported strange happenings. Specifically, there are unexplained cold spots, and they happen specifically when stepping out of the elevator. It seems to happen regardless of floor.
Okay.
And I was thinking of the style of the birdcage elevator and the elevator shaft. Maybe it has something to do with insulation, like when you're stepping out and experiencing that shaft, there's a chill. But then that would be seasonal, I think.
Oh, yeah, that's a fair point. I don't think you'd feel that in the summer.
Right.
Because I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I mean, if those doors are open and kind of, not solid doors, then yeah, there might be a draft, but not if there's not really windows near there.
Right. So I take that as kind of paranormal, potentially.
Yeah.
I'll give it a maybe. Another physical haunting is that of lights flickering on their own. And again, it could be an old building.
Yeah.
Of course, if it was the same light over and over for 60 years, I'm sure someone would fix it. But since it's just general flickering of lights, I'm hesitant to chalk that up to the paranormal.
I agree. When we talk about old buildings, it's easy to chalk that stuff up to just old wiring.
Right.
And I kind of always want there to be more.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes when it comes to lights, it's just not. It's, that and slamming doors when there's windows in the room. You kind of wish that there might be something more or definitively something more, but really it might just be nature.
Right. And as people that are exploring the history and hauntings, it's our job to kind of look at this stuff skeptically and think, I will say, overall, I definitely think the Pioneers Museum is haunted. I definitely think Eddie's there. I definitely think there's other spirits there. It's just these general hauntings of the cold spots, the lights flickering, that I'm less likely to say is definitively paranormal.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
Any final thoughts on the Pioneers Museum?
Yeah, I really want to go, honestly. I think that would be so cool to get to see an old courthouse turned museum.
Yeah, I think so too. This place has so much history. To think of the people that have walked the halls and, of course, to see the displays and the exhibits would be cool in and of itself.
And doing an investigation there would be really cool. I don't know if people have been successful with contacting Eddie, if that is a possibility, but I really would like to get to interact with his spirit, if that's possible.
Yeah, I think anytime you have a name and more information about who the person was, it really puts you at such an advantage for an investigation because you can really try to interact with them.
Yeah.
If you've been to the Pioneers Museum, we would love to hear your experiences. You can email us at theteam@hauntedus.com and include Haunted Atlas Episode 12 in the subject line, or you can find us on Instagram @hauntedus. Tune in to our next episode to see where we drop the pin on our adventure across the Haunted US. This episode of Haunted Atlas was presented by Sarah Sweeney and Erica Barrett. It was researched by Sarah Sweeney, supported by research from Haunted US head writer Mitch Goff, with production assistance by David Sweeney, and music by Colleen Johnson. Our executive producer is Brandon Rugsey. Haunted Atlas is a production of Haunted US. Visit hauntedus.com for more information.